Two, three, hey!
What's up, Squadron? Aviation has given me a ton of amazing experiences. And more importantly, it's introduced me to a whole new family of friends. Join us tonight because we're cleared direct for some hangar flying. I'm Bryon Dembroski, and this is SuperAero Live. What's up, can you hear me? What's up, Av Geeks? It's Wednesday, which can only mean one thing. It's time for SuperAero Live, coming at you live from a Holiday Inn in northern Wisconsin. That's right, I got called into work, but I wanted to make sure we still could have the show tonight with Justin, who we're going to introduce in a second. So, yeah, it's different. I was also thinking there have probably been other times that a tripod has been in this room, and that would be for creepier things. Hope you're all doing good today. Hope that you are staying warm. Heard it was minus 45 today, but I hope you're hanging in there. And I was in the cold, walking around trying to get ready for a film shoot that we're doing up here. So yeah, just hanging in. But so far, it looks like we are, the bandwidth is holding. I'm getting notes that maybe just got to move close. I've got the mic up all the way, and hopefully, yeah, nice lamp. Yeah, I made sure to bring that in, myself. The other thing, guys, is I'm not yelling because I'm concerned that the person in the room next to me is going to complain. So normally I'm like in my basement shouting at you guys. So we will we'll figure it out. But hang in with me. I got to introduce our guest tonight. I'm really excited. I'm just going to get him on the screen here, and then I want to tell a little story, Justin. This is Justin, everybody.
What's up, everyone? How y'all doing?
Justin from Pilot to Pilot, kind of a big deal. Really excited to have you here tonight, buddy. I was going to just tell a quick story about you and I met. We're like Instagram friends.
Yeah, that's the new cool thing is be Instagram friends.
And then you were foolish enough to have me on your podcast, which is going to come out sometime.
Sometime soon. Yeah.
So we talked about a bunch of stuff on the podcast. We talked about my stupid journey and all the goofy things I'm doing. But tonight, it's all about you. And I'm excited to talk about it. But first, I want to say hi to a couple people in the chat. Maybe you know some of these names too. Pilot Annie is here from Canada. She said that she got internet last year, is what she said. That Canada just got internet last year. 782 Papa's here. Noah Goldstein is here. Jeff Jensen's here. Gary Smith, the Flying Stampede. Oh man, the gang is all here. Apparently, it sounds like I'm doing a radio show is it because my dulcet tones? Is this? We were joking before this show. Justin and I were joking that it was an ASMR show. Plane Ladies here. I saw you guys before we started. You guys talking about rivets. I haven't gotten any rivets in the mail, but I gladly start assembling something. We'll just see what we can make. Couldn't be any more slapdash than that Raptor plane, right? Okay. What? Sick burn. Justin.
What's up?
I want to talk. So what's like the Justin elevator pitch? You've got this podcast. You're also a corporate pilot. Like, hit us with who you are for people who don't know at home.
That's the hardest thing for me to do because I interview people constantly every single week, but I absolutely hate talking about myself. So this will be tough for me. Elevator pitch. I'll do it as quick as possible. Give me a countdown or give me a counter or something. But from Charlotte, North Carolina, my dad's a pilot. My grandpa was a pilot. He flew in World War II. He flew for United. So I kind of have aviation in my blood, but I never knew I wanted to be a pilot. I didn't even think about aviation until I was in college. And I realized that I took sports as far as I could take it, which got me in college, but I realized that it just wasn't going to take me any farther. So I needed to figure out plan B, C, D, whatever I was at that point, because I tried math, I tried these other things. I just didn't really like any of the schoolwork that I was doing. So I went to go fly, loved it immediately, and I was kind of hooked from there. Coach Trissell from Ohio State used to let me skip practice every once in a while. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell people that, but to go fly, which is pretty cool. But now currently I'm flying a Citation Latitude for a fractional company and fly all over the country, Canada, Mexico, the islands. So we do some pretty cool flying. And then I also host the Pilot podcast, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more of. And your episode's coming out soon, I promise. I'll get it out there eventually.
I mean, no pressure. I was just wondering if it was maybe just super bad, and then you just didn't want.
No,
you were just like,
yeah.
no, it's cool, man. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be
I had
great.
to hold it up so I could come on yours first, and now that I'm here, now I can release it.
There we go. I see. So it was like a ransom thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I do it all the time. Yeah.
Probably shouldn't joke about kidnapping in a hotel.
Yeah.
So.
Not
By the way, some folks pointed out last week's guest, Gil Barros, did this show from a hotel, and his hotel room had a staircase in it. There is no staircase in this hotel room, just to be clear to everybody. Okay, so yeah, I don't whatever. So, where do you want to go first? You want to talk? I would like to hear the origin story. You touched on it a little bit. First of all, I'm Wisconsin. Through and through. You're Ohio State, so we hate each other for life now.
Well, you guys beat us every once in a while, but I mean, it's not like that often, so we don't really hate you guys. There might be animosity toward us, but like it's like, oh, it's Wisconsin. They like cheese and spotted cow.
Honestly, it's more about Michigan and Minnesota for us, I think.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the journey up to flying for corporate. And you and I asked our audiences to send questions in for you tonight. And I have a lot of questions about like what it's like to be a corporate pilot. But like before we get to there, I would be interested to hear more about, so you were flying in college a little bit. Like what's the career path? Like how do I, if I were to have I am having a midlife crisis, but if I was going to have a midlife crisis and try to be you, like, how do I do that? Like, you're flying you're skipping football practice every once in a while to fly. Like, what's next?
Well, I didn't skip. I had permission, so I want to throw that out
Okay,
there. It wasn't
fair
skipping.
enough.
I don't want my strength coach to come back and make me do sprints or something like that for listening to this one day. But yeah. Kind of the path to where I am now is a little unusual just because I didn't choose the CFI route. I didn't know I wanted to do aviation until later. That does happen a lot, but a lot of people that we do talk to, I'm sure you could agree to this as well. They usually know, a lot of pilots know they want to be a pilot really early on in their career. But as I kept progressing through my career, I originally wanted, I guess I'll start with this. I originally wanted to be an airline pilot, just like my dad, just like my grandpa. But as I kept progressing in my career, I really kind of fell in love with the FBO, getting my own fuel, kind of like the one-on-one relationship with the people and meeting them and kind of handling everything on your own. It's a different beast. It's a different world than the airline world. And I just honestly didn't think that I could do anything else. I don't think I would be happy just turning left in an Airbus and flying the same route over and over again, or 737. So from there, it just kind of made sense. And there was this one company, which most people know who I fly for, but I just can't physically say it. But there's this one company that I always wanted to fly for, and everything kind of worked out with the timing and everything. But if you were to be me, you would need to swear your allegiances to Ohio State. Say OHIO all the time. You would need to, no, just kidding. Yeah, it would just be, well, I guess we'll talk more about that later, but like just going to go fly and flying and doing what you love. I mean, you can make a career out of this in so many different ways. I mean, you and I can just talk and make a career out of aviation. Aviation is so much bigger than being an airline pilot. And that's always been one of my goals to kind of share, is just the fact that you can do so much more than just fly airlines. You can have a very successful career. Now, maybe the money might not be all there, but there's some jobs where the money still is there, and you can have a little more fun than airlines. So there's a little bit of give and take, but that's kind of like the short rambling answer to your question that you had.
No, that's super awesome. And I think what that makes me want to ask next is, you mentioned that you wouldn't be happy necessarily in an Airbus, just doing the same route every day. I think that resonates with a lot of folks who are watching tonight. I'm curious what, like, if you had to describe like what, because I don't think we've ever had a corporate pilot on the show before. You're number one. But like, what's the day to, like, what's an average day for you, like when you're working, or is there no average day?
There's really no average. I mean, the only one average in your career as a corporate pilot is you're either going to be in Teterboro or Van Nuys, probably once a month or once a week, or sometimes twice a day, 3 times a day. So those are the only two constants in your life, for me at least, is Teterboro and Van Nuys. Everything else is completely all over the place.
Okay, and then like, let's say you are on, what do you is it? What do you call it when you're like working? Like, is it like I'm on
On a
call? Are you
tour.
on call? Or are you just what's that?
So yeah. Oh, so I'll be out for 7 days. We'll call that a tour.
Okay.
So it's a flying tour overall. That's what we'll call the whole big picture. On call isn't necessarily the right word because we do have set duty limitations. It's 91K. So it's not just straight up 91 or 135 where you have the hard 10 hours off and then you can be called out at any time. But in those 14 hours that we are available to work, we could do literally anything that duty day allows. So I could be waking up in Teterboro at 9 a.m., have breakfast, have lunch. Maybe I have no plans for flying all day. And 10 minutes later, boom, phone goes off. You now have 4 legs. You're going to Canada, you're going to the Bahamas, and you're going to end up in Fort Lauderdale, or you're going to end up in Jackson Hole. So that's when you ask about the averages, and an average day is so different. The only kind of constant is, like I said, Teterboro, Van Nuys, and you have no idea. And make sure all climates, because I've seen -6 in Jackson Hole, freezing my butt off, and then the very next day we were in we were in St. Martin on an overnight, and this was pre-COVID, but I would much rather prefer St. Martin in the wintertime. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. And yeah, call is the right word, but it's not the right word. But we can literally do anything that our duty day allows, and duty day would be 14 hours of actual work. So that is just from being on call to off call, 14 hours, and then 10 hours of flying we could do in one day.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, there's some variability there, just a little bit.
Yes,
I mean, that's
absolutely
awesome though. I think the few times I've been, and by the way, folks at home, like, thanks for hanging with us. I'm hearing everything Justin's saying, but sometimes he's popping out. And if you're mad at me about this, Justin, we'll just have you on again next week. We'll just do you'll be a regular on the show. The few times I've been lucky enough to fly corporate, I think obviously like the passenger experience is pretty dramatically amazing. But the other thing, the pilots that I was talking to, it was interesting to me that they all came from pretty varied backgrounds, and that they all talked about what you're talking about. Like, that was the allure, like the allure of like, hey, for these next 7 days, I could be anywhere. And that was like part of the fun, part of the adventure for them. So I think that's cool to hear it, hear it again from you for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that's not for everyone. I was asked this question the other day, if can everyone do it? It's like, yes, everyone can do it, but I don't know if everyone can make a career out of it, because there's just so many times where maybe you're really hoping you have this overnight, or your best friend lives here and you're going to have that overnight, and they take it away from you and you're going somewhere else, and it's somewhere you don't want to be, and it's really cold, and there's just going to be coming up a point where you're just not going to know if this lifestyle is for you. So everyone can do it, but I don't know if they can do it for a whole career. It kind of takes a special special person, I guess. Not like special in like a great way, just like someone's messed up in the head that can take that kind of beating over and over again.
I feel the same way about film production, right? Like, my wife and I were just talking about that last night, right? Like, the scope of the project I'm on changed, and I needed to leave a day early, and we're having that discussion, and it's super hard for us because we have kids and all that stuff. It was like, the idea was like, hey, they own me for the day. I got to do whatever they need me to do. And it was like, go to northern Wisconsin and search for cabins, right? Like, that's what I'm going to be doing the next couple days. And so that's just that's part of what I love about the work, right? Is that I never know what I'm going to see or do next. But separately, that makes it a little difficult because it's variable, right? Like I'm gonna miss my kid's first day of kindergarten. Go hashtag dad award of the year, right? But it's just the way the cookie crumbles, right? So, um, anyway, so I got some questions from you for Instagram. Let's start there. Um,
I'm nervous.
don't be nervous. You kind of already answered this one. Braden Lichty 16 asks, is it possible to be a commercial pilot and still come home every night? Does that job exist?
Oh, so the way that's worded, kind of, I believe Allegiant is set up that way. I think Allegiant Airlines, the kind of glamour and the allure, whatever, you guys know what I'm talking about. Their whole thing is that you are going to be at home every single night. So every single trip they have planned out is to get the pilot home every single night, and they have that ability. I think they're the only one. The only other option is be super, super, super senior, but even then, you're still going to be gone at least at some point. I mean, I think the average for us is between 14 days gone a month, all the way up until 19 days gone a month, and then other airlines, maybe if you don't have much seniority, you're looking at 18 days a month that you'll be gone, and if you do have seniority, you're looking more to 10 to 15. But no matter what, you're going to be gone unless it seems to be Allegiant or you find the perfect corporate aviation with the perfect person. And those are almost impossible to find.
The only thing I know about that is I have a friend who flies freight, and his particular company he's working for, he's home basically every night.
That's good.
Kind of a tag on question to that, and you talked a little bit in terms of days and the fact that you can do like the duty hours, but Luke is wondering how many hours you typically fly on a tour, and what's the longest leg you've ever had in the laddie. Ooh, I like that slang term, in the laddie.
Yeah, that's what I call the latitude. It's called the laddie. Um, let's see. Longest flight I've ever had in laddie is 6 hours and 45 minutes. It was insanely long. Where were we going? We did Dulles to Carlsbad, a pretty sick headwind, and it's right about the limit of what your butt would be willing to do for 6 hours and 45 minutes, and then also what the plane could do. So I mean, everything was legal with IFR minimums and everything that we needed, but that was the longest one. I just did one that was 5 hours, and that felt 10 times longer. I don't know if the headwind was stronger or what, or just the seats were worse, but typical tour, it kind of goes with what I said before. I have no idea. I've done one 7-day tour where I flew probably 4 hours in 7 days, just how everything worked out. I flew another tour where I flew 38 hours in 7 days. I've flown 24 hours in 4 days and 10 hours in 7 days. It's just kind of how scheduling works out. Every once in a while, you are kind of the reserve guy in case anyone has a maintenance issue or a passenger's late and the other crew goes past their duty hours. Then they have kind of like the reliever in the bullpen. They'll pull one of these and call the lefty in to come in and then save the day.
I like that. We had to get some more sports in there. More sports ball references.
Sports.
By the way, Jonathan in the chat, thank you so much, dude, for the super sticker. Para-character flying in the air with a red cape and a smile on his face. I'm sure it was adorable and or hilarious looking. Thank you, Jonathan. You're a huge supporter of the show, and I appreciate that. You guys are awesome. Also, someone thumbs down? Who thumbs down? Get out of here. Go away if you thumbs down. All right. One more question from Instagram. Well, here's a funny one. I think this is a fan of yours, Matt, and his dog Susan. Do you know this person?
Matt. Well, I think so. If once I see the picture, I probably will. If there is a picture, but it said my buddy Matt said, "I really hope he asked my question."
Okay, well, if it's Matt and his dog, I don't know if I can hold up my Instagram feed. He's asking, we all know it's true, but why do you think Southwest is the best airline ever?
Yes, it is. It is Matt. That's really funny. So a little bit of background. I am always on record saying that Southwest isn't my favorite airline. I've always said that every once in a while. It has nothing to do with the airline at all. My dad grew up, or my dad's a American Airlines pilot, former U.S. Airways pilot. There was hostility after 9/11 when Southwest had genius fuel hedging. Fuel costs, and they were doing so much better than everyone. So it was kind of like a weird hostility between my dad and Southwest that was passed on to me. I've flown Southwest every once in a while, and it was fantastic. The 737, it's not my favorite plane, but they do a great job. Matt is in Chicago, and I hope he's listening to this right now, but I've met with them. I met with some of the chief pilots over at Southwest, and some of the coolest people that I've had the pleasure to meet in aviation. So they have swayed my idea of Southwest, and I enjoy it much more. And actually, I like Southwest, so they've done a good job of changing my hostility toward them to start out with.
Very diplomatically put. I hope you're okay with it. I love all the people have so many questions for you. I think just because what you're doing right now is a really unique career path. I think like you said, the top of the hour, right? Like a lot of people start wanting to go like airline pilot specifically. And it feels exciting to me to talk to someone who's just got a different, we'll talk about your podcast too. But exciting to hear about that sort of stuff, right? It's just different. One of the things, Martin Pauly, who you might know, former guest on the show.
What's up, Martin?
Previous guest. He says, how often does it happen that you fly with an empty jet? And is that any fun?
That's a really good question. Is it any fun? It is. We treat it the same as a passenger flight. So, I mean, it's lighter most of the time. We might have less fuel on board. Sometimes we have more fuel depending on where we're ferrying to. That's what we call those. We call those ferry legs. They happen a lot more than you would think. We operate where very on demand. We go to our owners, to our passengers. So I have done one ferry, I kid you not, from Las Vegas to Henderson. If you pull those two airports up, they're probably 5 miles away from each other. Total flight time was like a minute and 1 second. Like it might even been under a minute, but we do a lot of ferry flights. Like I said, we fly everything to the same SOPs, but it can be a lot of fun. The Latitude can take off very, very quickly. It's a pig up after 20,000 feet, but 20,000 and below, that thing is pretty awesome to fly and pretty fun.
I feel like the last time I flew in one in a Latitude, I was impressed with the acceleration. Like, you know, when you think of like heavy iron, like real, like a 737 or something, it's that like slow lurch to it. And this was like, it felt like we were like max performing, but it was probably just like the normal everyday takeoff that you get to do in that jet. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, every day. I mean, we have a FADEC that determines takeoff settings and stuff, but every single setting is full blow. So everyone is, let's go, giddy on up, and take off. And every once in a while, if you're light enough, you will get kind of pushed back a little bit. But the Latitude is definitely not known to be the most, the fastest or the most powerful aircraft. But it definitely gets the job done, and it can make you feel like you're going pretty quick and taking off pretty fast.
I dig it. Okay, one more question. A couple of people have asked this in the chat about passengers, and I'm sure you can't. It's a two-part question. One was people want to know if you've ever flown any celebrities and who they are and how amazing were they. But then Zach Sherman is asking, do you ever have annoying or unruly passengers, and how do you handle that? Because obviously the power dynamic or the relationship, I mean, these are your clients, right? It's a slightly different. So I'm curious if that makes your job more complicated at all.
I've been at the company for three years now. I have flown what I would say maybe 2 celebrities. They were all great. I can't name names, obviously. They were great, fantastic. Have I had any unruly people? No. most people, they're pretty used to flying private. They're pretty used to what comes with it, delays or whatever, just everything that encompasses private aviation. They have seen it before. Maybe every once in a while, a new owner gets educated or has to go through an experience. And when I say experience, it's nothing bad, but sometimes you have a longer taxi route out of O'Hare than maybe some other planes will. But they figure that out on the go. So I haven't had anyone unruly. I would say it's pretty nice sitting back there. I mean, you're in these nice leather seats, you're spread out, you can lay all the way back. There's coffee, there's snacks, there's alcohol for the passengers, not for us. There's a bathroom, the air conditioning's unbelievable, the heat's unbelievable. You got an iPad for movies. So, I mean, it's pretty nice back there. Even if you're inconvenienced at all, you're still sitting pretty nice in a pretty cool plane.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've not had very many experiences as a passenger, but the funniest part of it for me was the person who was generous enough to invite me along. They brought sandwiches, and we were just like sharing sandwiches and then getting fairly drunk on the flight back because you can.
What else are you gonna do? Yeah, why not? Enjoy it.
Got to do it. Okay. So, folks, I mean, definitely continue to put questions in about Zach Sherman says thanks, by the way. If you have any continued corporate pilot questions, like throw them in. But I wanted just to shift gears for a second. You've got this amazing neon sign behind you. It looks almost as good as my lamp.
I was just about to ask you where that lamp is from because I think I need to add it. I think maybe like right here. Wait, you can't see my point. Yeah, right there. It'll look pretty good.
That would look great. I don't know where it's from, but I'm pretty certain I got COVID from turning it on. So
yeah, you should probably quarantine there for a couple weeks.
Yeah. You know what's really great is outside this window is a giant coal-powered power plant.
Nice. So not only did you get COVID, you also have a superpower.
Yes, from all the dust.
Yeah.
Our Wisconsin viewers may now know where I am. Actually, I just realized I probably gave away where I am. But anyway, all right. So let's talk about pilot to pilot, man. So like that's a pretty. It's been going for a number of years now. It's like an institution. Like
That's
when
crazy.
when did that start? Like how did you decide to start that?
So I've told this not too often, but every once in a while I throw like snippets out in my podcast, or I've been interviewed by AOPA and Chris from Angle of Attack, and I've kind of told the story. So really, in all honesty, I would have never started this on my own. I'm more of, or I have changed my mentality since then, but I'm more of like, hey, I'm just going to go back and play video games for 12 hours a day. It's just what I was doing. I flew freight at the time. My wife would go to work. She would come back, or actually she was in school. She'd go to school at like 9 a.m. She'd come back 5 p.m. I'm still sitting in the same place, playing the same video games with the same people. And she's like, what are you doing with your life? And I was like, just playing video games and enjoying my life. And she was like, why don't you try to give back to aviation? Why don't you try to make the community better in any way that you can? And that was really cool for seeing in me that I had the ability to do this, because she saw this in me before even I saw this in me. Like I ask her every single day, I was like, why did you tell me? Did you think I could do it? And she was just all the confidence in the world. She's like, I just knew that you would be really good at it. So since then, that was 2016. I think the podcast started 2017. I actually sat on it for about 6 months. I was too afraid to do it. I was scared, not of the internet, not what other people would say, but my friends from back home would say, what my family members would say. Because I mean, whenever you start something like this, you're very fragile. You're very vulnerable to feedback because you haven't built anything yet, and people just kind of laugh at you and scoff at you. And and as you've seen, people do create stuff all the time. That's great. But a lot of times people don't follow through. So no one really thinks that you're going to continue to do this. And no one's really going to really think that this is like a thing, or really even like pay attention to it until you're doing 10 episodes, 15 episodes. And like, dang, he's really not stopping. Like, poor kid. He doesn't realize he's terrible at it. But I did it. I forced myself to record. And started in 2016. I started with Instaplane, which was an OG aircraft resharing Instagram. It is no more. And yeah, I started from there and just kept going. About 8 months after that, I had what I would say is a break is my big break is Pilot Maria. She has been the best and has helped me out so many ways. I was actually in China visiting my sister, and she gave me a shout out on Instagram, and she's given me so many shout outs, and that has kind of helped to draw a fan base to me. And since then, I've just kept going one a week, probably for like almost 2 years now. And during coronavirus, when it was first going on, I think I did 2 week for like 2 months. So it's been a lot of content and a lot of interviews.
Man, I mean, I've it's interesting because I just realized that I think I maybe I want to like look here. I think I maybe started following you maybe through Pilot Maria. Which, by the
No
way,
way.
I'm sure Pilot Maria is watching this right now, and congratulations on your
Absolutely.
baby. Your baby's
Yeah.
adorable.
Alice. Alice is very cute.
You know the name. I don't even know the name. I just saw the baby. There's all these pictures of this baby.
Hey man, I'm forever grateful for Maria for listening to the podcast and giving me a shout out. So yeah, she's been the best and has helped out in any way, done way more for me than I'd ever ask. So she's great.
So, uh, I obviously look up to you a little bit because you've got this podcast that you've been cultivating and working on, and that suddenly, I have a very similar story: self censorship, not being sure if I was ready to go to do it. Finally, COVID happens, and I'm like, I gotta do something. I'm gonna go crazy. Um,
Yeah.
what's the one thing, as you've been interviewing all these other pilots, having these heart to heart conversations, is there one thing that you were surprised that you learned?
Well, first I'll say thanks for saying that. That means a lot hearing that. Even if you were just saying that to make me feel good that you look up to me. I mean, well, not necessarily look up to me, but listen, follow, all that kind of stuff. That's really cool to hear. One thing that I've learned for like a personal standpoint is I didn't think I could do this. I didn't trust myself to continue. I thought I'd start, and just like everyone else, I'd stop. There comes a point when you're doing this. There's been multiple times in me doing this, even more recently than you would probably imagine, because you might look at here, seeing that I've been doing it for so long, seeing how many followers, how many reviews, whatever it may be, but there's still this not like demon, but there's always something in the back of your head, like the evil me saying like, you suck, you can't do this. But one thing that I learned and I'm proud of is just that I just stuck with it. Just continue to do what you love and do what you like to do. Don't worry, try not to worry about what other people say. I mean, there's definitely haters out there. There's people that look to make you feel stupid when you are out there and putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. So I'd say I'm just proud of myself for going out there and doing it. Like I said, I'm very thankful for my wife for even telling me to do this and giving me the idea. Without her, none of this would be here. We wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't have the sweet camo hat or that awesome sign, which is also from her. On an interview aspect, I feel like I've just learned how to talk to people. Public speaking has been one of my biggest fears since I was young. I don't like to talk too much. I'm very much an introvert. Talking to people really drains me. I am like extremely drained usually when I go do small talk out when my wife and I are out and about. Once again, pre-COVID, don't really do that any much, but just being able to talk to people, being able to be confident in what I'm saying, being able to not be afraid of talking to anyone. Like I literally could feel like I could go up to the president of the United States and feel comfortable talking to him just because I've talked to so many people and not have like this really huge like nerves in me, which I probably would still, but I'd still feel confident myself to not say anything stupid. So those would be the two things I say I've learned.
Is there, I mean, so it's funny, right? Like people talk about how do you get, because I was a theater major, right? So it's like, oh, like this should be easy, but it's not. And the only way to get better at it is like just throw yourself into the pool, right? It's like my dad when he taught me to swim by literally throwing me off a pier. Thanks, Dad. Uh, glad we
You do
don't.
or you don't, right?
Right. Um, he's like, don't worry, you'll be fine, or you won't, and then I'll pull you out. Like,
Maybe if I get there fast enough.
um, by the way, Nick Moore, thank you, Nick. That's amazing. Thanks for the pair character jumping up and down saying #1 fan. And by the way, also the other thing that's been happening, you and I are having this like big heart-to-heart conversation about how doing this has like changed our lives. And these guys are trying to figure out where I am in the state. And I will say Waukesha Pilot got it right. I'm in Wausau right now.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Sounds like a place setting for making a murderer.
Shh, don't. I'm kind of close to the elevator in this hotel. It's like, and that's not really northern Wisconsin, says 72 Papa. You're right. It's only like halfway. It's halfway up. Great airport though here. Like the approaches are all over water. It's just like super cool. Like you're going over the Wisconsin River. I don't know. Unless you don't want to go in the water, then I guess it's not great. So okay, back to us. So here's what I think. All of that's really interesting. Would you change anything? Or sorry, would you say that you've changed anything about the kind of pilot you are in the cockpit based on doing your show?
No, I'd say no. I mean, I've learned a lot from people. But actually translating that to flying, I would probably say no. I don't know if that's because for more than almost the whole time that I've been doing this, I think there's about a year and a half where I did this when I flew freight. But since then, it's always been a very regimented training, and I'm not really flying small GA. I mean, I'm still flying GA, but I'm not flying a 172 anymore. So I'd probably say no to that as where we are right now. I want to get back into smaller GA and fly 172s, and that's where I would probably say yes, just because I am so far removed from that aspect of flying that I need to learn from everyone else. Not saying I don't need to learn now. Like I still learn all the time when I'm flying the Latitude, but I can learn so much more from the people I'm talking to about a 172 than probably a Latitude. And that's not me trying to say I'm the best Latitude pilot ever, because clearly I'm not. But very regimented training. I'm actually going to training in like, well, I don't know, I'm looking at my watch. It's 9:13, but I'm going to training probably, I think it's in 2 weeks. So I got to go back there. But I would probably say no as of right now.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. By the way, I saw they were making you the trophy for the best Latitude pilot in the world. I don't want to like spoil it, but like you definitely like that's definitely you. So I think you're good.
What's that organization name there?
I think that was Latitude. From the Galactic Latitude Pilot Federation.
Good. Yeah, that's a tough award to get, so I'm very thankful for that.
So okay, so I'm going to switch gears slightly again, but the thing I wanted to ask you next was I've been doing a lot of driving, and by the way, everyone in the chat's like, why did you drive? Because I have to scout. I'm scouting like houses, and so like I literally drove for 8 hours today driving around the city, taking pictures of houses. And so I thought about flying, obviously winter IFR or whatever, and then IFR rated. The other thing is that I would need to like borrow a crew car for like days or like rent a car. And so it's just easier and more comfortable to whatever. Excuses. I should have flown. But anyway, so I was listening to your podcast on the way home from a meeting would have been last week, and I was listening to the kind of series that you did with Trent Palmer, or whatever his name is, about like you did like here's things to consider for private pilot. And then the one I listened to most recently was, because it's something I'm considering, right, is like your instrument rating and what effect that can have on, your flying and how to approach it and how to be successful with that. I'm curious, is that sort of content, I don't know. I found that really useful, right? I think what's cool about your podcast is everything that you're doing, there's always like a little kernel in there, literally, except for my episode, which no one will learn anything from when I'm on. But, I don't know. Is that something you're setting out to do, or is that just because of the community? Like, to me, it feels like you like purposely were like, I'm going to make sure that every one of these episodes. I mean, I don't know if you meant it to be like a heart to heart between two pilots, pilot to pilot. I don't know if that was your intent when you named it, but like that's what it really genuinely feels like. I don't know if I'm asking the question right, but
no, I know what you're saying, but I would tell you no. I did not set out to kind of have it be a heart to heart. One thing about me is what I do best is kind of just me in front of the camera with nothing planned. So I go into every single interview, I go into every single kind of one-on-one interaction or whoever I'm interviewing, and I literally know as little as possible. I know absolutely nothing. I interviewed John and Martha King. I mean, I've watched maybe one or two of their videos, not very too many. Never talked to them before in my life. I didn't, people probably laugh, think I'm insane. I probably miss a bunch of questions, but for me, it's in the moment. It's trying to capture a very raw conversation. Just like I met, so say like just me and John and Martha King just met randomly in a hangar. The questions I would want to ask them if I had 30 minutes alone to talk to them. I don't plan anything. The only planned question I have is, why did you start in aviation? What was your inspiration? And then from there, I form every single question based off just what I think on the spot. So I never intentionally did that. I think as it has grown and as I've done, I think Tuesday was the 153rd episode. It's kind of been like a routine. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Shut up.
153 episodes. Yeah, insane.
How do you do? I mean, I will admit, like, just as a side note, like, Wednesdays are like the thing that recharges my batteries right now, and I am definitely tired sometimes. And I'm only like, this is what, 36? Episode 36? Like, that's insane. I don't know.
Crazy.
Props to you, man. Props to you, huh?
Thanks.
Sorry.
Hey, look at that.
Continue. Sorry.
I need to go back. No, you're fine. I need to go back and look because I don't remember exactly how long I've been doing weekly episodes, but I think it's close to 2 years now. So I haven't missed a Tuesday for over 2 years. I'm pretty sure someone might be able to prove me wrong. So if you're in there, please try to prove me wrong because I want to know too. I'm too lazy to go look it up. But yeah. So what I was saying, it just kind of happened that way. And I think that, I don't know what episode it might have been. When I started interviewing, I didn't have a very big reach. So I interviewed who I could. I interviewed the people I flew with. I interviewed my friends. I tried to beg my friends to come on the podcast. I mean, they might be listening to this now. They didn't know exactly who they are because they still won't come on the podcast right now, but it's because they're afraid to tell their story because more people are listening. But I had to beg people to come on the podcast and really kind of go out there and take a leap of faith, or they had to take a leap of faith and come on the podcast for me to share. And I think it was the close relationships that I had with these people. I knew them, I knew more about them, which is kind of a little different for me saying that I know nothing about people now. But I think that kind of taught me how I wanted them to be structured. I've never written any structure down. Just in my mind, I kind of go into pilot to pilot podcast mode, and I know kind of, I guess I've learned subconsciously how to kind of navigate a story to tell it the way I want to. But yeah, it's all just kind of on the cusp, whatever comes up and whatever we want to talk about. It's fair game.
I love it. I don't even know. I mean, the other thing that's kind of interesting, I mean, I remember what we talked about because it was just like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, it felt like when I was on the show, like it was just this, like we were obviously getting to know each other, but then separately, like it was just like two pilots hanging out, right? Like there was nothing like particularly stressful about it, I guess, right? I remember we talked about, I think I waxed poetic too much, but anyway, we'll find out when it comes out. I'll remember what we talked about, but okay. Yeah, right. Oh, that's right. I mean, it's funny, like, and I'm sure people do this to you way more than they say it to me. They'll be like, hey, do you remember, like, that episode you did with this XYZ person? And they said this one thing. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, there's, like, 37 hours in my brain. There's over 100 hours in your brain, right? Like, how do you, it's hard to recall, right?
You can't. There's one person that I interviewed very early on, like probably 15th episode, maybe something like that. I mean, I don't know the exact one, so don't look it up. But we did, he was, I forget the scenario we're in, but he's like, oh, Justin knows everything about me. He can just say it. And I'm like, what? I was like, I don't remember much of what we talked about. I'm very sorry. So that was a very embarrassing moment for me, but yeah, it's hard to recall.
Okay, so we're almost out of time, and there are a few more, which is amazing. See, these things go so fast because we're just hanging out.
So fast.
And then the housekeeping hasn't knocked on the door to tell me I'm being too loud yet. A couple questions that came in, I just wanted to make sure people got to ask you. Jason Follas is just asking. We talked about OSU. Did you learn to fly at OSU, or did you come in with your private before that?
No, so I never touched an airplane. I've sat in an airplane, but I've never, up until I went to Ohio State and realized this was like 2 years into me being at Ohio State that I realized that I was going to be a pilot, and that was the first time I've ever been in a small airplane. So I had no exposure to Cessna 172s. I honestly probably didn't even really know what they were. When I say aviation never entered my brain, I never even thought about it. I couldn't even tell you what a 737 was, a 321. I was so focused on sports that it was NFL all the way, nothing else. And then when I finally was able to kind of get out of that mindset and share some space with aviation, I was able to realize and start down that path. So I didn't start until 2 years into aviation, and it took me, I think people know, it took me about 3 years to get my private pilot license. So it was definitely a long trek.
Do you think there's anything? Something just occurred to me. Like, do you think that there's anything that you brought from your athletic career over, like that helped? I'm assuming it helped you, right? Like, do you feel like it?
Yeah, I would definitely say it helped. I'd say the mindset, especially when things go wrong. I've had some emergencies in flying. I've lost an engine in a 206. I've had some, I think I've had like 3 or 4 like actually emergency situations. I was able to keep my cool in most of these. Well, I say now, I mean, in the moment I might have been screaming and crying, but I believe being in high pressure situations in football. Now, high pressure in football is very different than high pressure. And like we said earlier, you either do or you don't. Like, this is kind of like life or death. Um, I think that I learned and trained my brain how to process information quickly, how to kind of anticipate, uh, be in tune with what's going on, if that makes sense. On a quarterback, you got to know everything. You got to know, you got to anticipate everything. So I'm always in my brain. I'm always anticipating, listening for something that might be wrong, looking out for something, kind of always seeing like that next step and even farther past the next step, like 2 or 3 steps down. So I can always kind of know what's going to happen before it happens. I would definitely say that it has helped. Like I said, definitely handling adversity. The way I was able to attack studying once I finally accepted that I needed to study. I wasn't the best student when I started out, but I was able to attack it in a way, translate how I studied with football, and that kind of helped me out with everything too. So yeah, it definitely helped.
I feel like I gotta ask you about these emergencies. Everyone wants to tell.
Yeah.
I'm sure you want to tell an emergency story. Uh, is there one? I don't know. Like, I would be curious to hear what kind of things you're dealing with in your career like that, because I feel like most of us on the like private pilot side, it's like, just waiting for that engine to quit, ride it down into the field. You know what I mean? Like our emergencies are weirdly non-complex often, right? Like the things that are harming us or challenging us as like general aviation VFR pilots there's like 3 top ones, right? And it's like, so we'd all have to just really be careful and study for those things. Like, I don't know, maybe you're probably like, I don't really want to talk about this, but I feel like the chat was going to ask if I didn't ask.
No, yeah, and they should ask. I was flying a 206 for aerial survey, trying to build my time. I probably within a month of me being there. It was on February 11th. We were flying back from Washington D.C. inside the SIFRA, and we were flying back, and we both later found out that we both had the same thought right before it happened, but we both were looking around and just thinking to ourselves, this would be a terrible time for us to lose our engine. And 2 minutes later, we lost our engine. We were over, not the mountain, we were kind of just past the Appalachian Mountains, and we were getting on where it was like bigger rolling hills, and we lost our engine right on top of there. It was a pretty shocking experience. There's definitely that like the processing part of it. And the processing part, how long it takes for you to process what really happens, is one of the most important things that you can kind of deal with, because you have very limited time. We were cruising at 4,500 feet from what I remember, just kind of just going home. We were VFR. It was a beautiful day. 4,500 feet to whatever those rolling hills are at happened very, very quick. We didn't time it, so I don't know the exact time off the top of my head. But I remember watching the Sully movie, and they talked about how the simulator pilots didn't take the time to process that, and they were able to land at Teterboro, or they were able to come back. But it's really that 5, 10, 15 seconds that you are in shock. You're like, holy smokes, this is actually happening. Or it's kind of like a progression. You go like, what was that? And you're like, just kind of dumb to the situation. You're like, that didn't happen. There's no way it happened. And then you're like, oh my gosh, it happened. And then how long that takes is really what's going to determine the outcome of that event. The more and the quicker that you can process that information and be able to go back to your training and get the job done, that is what's going to kind of save your life, save the plane. We were able to land that plane. So I never thought I was going to die during that for some reason. I don't know if I was just dumb. I thought I might break some bones because there's a bunch of hills, but it wasn't like impact into a mountain or a hill that I was afraid of. It was more of landing in the treetops. But we actually found, and I swear, if you're not, sorry, but it really felt like God was guiding us to this one random kind of uphill wet strip that was a pond like 3 months ago that they just filled in with dirt that we were able to land on. And it was really a non-event after that. We landed, we went what we thought was straight, and it went to a huge divot. We went up in the air, probably like 3 feet, and came back down. The only damage to the plane was a bent prop. If it wasn't for that ditch, we probably would have come very close to hitting 3 huge pressurized oil tanks, which that would have been very bad. But thank goodness that didn't happen.
So what's funny about, and I think what we need to learn about this, right, is I'm going to like, oh, like, you know, you're a big time corporate pilot, like very complex emergencies, and you're like, boom, like obviously different aircraft, but like, boom, it still happens even to like commercial, you know what I mean? Like that thing that applies to all. I mean, there's a lot to take away from that story, but the thing that kind of struck me was that like that feels like when I introduced the idea, I felt like I was like downplaying, like, oh, like, you know, we lose our engine, whatever, we have to go in a field, we practice, and then hearing you tell the story, it's like, well, it can happen to any person in your level of training, right? Like it's not like, I don't know, and I feel kind of like a jerk right now, honestly, but
no, you shouldn't feel like a jerk, because I mean, there's a difference. I mean, there's not really a difference. It's still an emergency, but sometimes emergencies can happen in easier places to deal with them than others. So there is a time. I mean, you fly, whether you're in the Midwest, and it's very, very flat all the time. Now that is still a very much emergency. That is still very much like, holy crap, I just lost my engine. But it's also like, all right, let me think, where can I land? And you look left, right, up, down, around, everywhere. You're like, okay, there's a road, there's a flat, like you can literally land anywhere in Iowa, parts of Ohio. You know, I mean, maybe I haven't flown too much in Wisconsin. I mean, I have, but you probably land a lot of places. But when you get to a point where the emergency happens and but a not very favorable moment, then that really, the time that you make your choices in that airplane is what saves your life. The quicker you can make the decision, and that decision, you need to make a decision. If you contemplating the right and wrong decision is just you losing out on precious time on making that decision. So it really kind of depends on where it happens. Like if it happens over the water, that's a much different experience. Right. You know, you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna land on the water. There's no other option. But yeah, I don't think you should feel bad for how you asked it, how you phrased it. It all happens differently, happens to different people in different situations. I always thought I was kind of not macho, but you know, the attitude that you have, like, it's not going to happen to me. There's no way. Like, you hear about that, but there's no way it's going to happen to me. And then it can happen to you. And I mean, the chances are anyone flying, you're going to have some sort of issue when you're flying. Every flight's not going to be perfect.
Right. Well, and I think the way I was trying to, in my mind, I was expecting, you to tell a story about like, well, then I had to reroute the hydraulics through the 7 flange, whatever. You know what I mean? Like I was expecting something more complex. And I think the takeaways from all of that and this conversation, man, we've had like this has been like a really like deep conversation tonight. I should do all my shows something about this hotel room, right? And no, anyway, so
it's that lamp, man. I'm telling
I think I don't need to keep beating a dead horse about it. I think it's an important takeaway though, right? Like the important takeaway is it can happen to anybody. I think the other important takeaway, the lesson about that reaction time, right? Because I think when our instructors, I was thinking back, it's like, all right, like they would say like, simulate it, right? We're going to count a couple seconds before you get to do anything because you're not going to actually, it's coming when we're practicing during training, right? That whole sim thing with that scene with Sully. So, I don't know. I appreciate you sharing that story. I think there's a lot that we can all learn from that. The other thing, just for folks in the chat, like Wisconsin, the southern and eastern, like the southeast corner, tons of farm fields. Much further north than I'm at, it's just to become so dense trees that you're basically you're gonna hit a bunch of pine trees or something. Oh, and then there's some terrain to the west, but whatever. Braden says it's the lamp that's making us have such a great conversation.
if you could take it with you, it'll be the best thing you do this week.
Should I take it? Should I take it with me?
Don't take it. If your company's paying for the hotel, don't take it.
I mean, it's me. It's just my company, so I guess I have to pay for it. Then.
Well, who knows? We stay at Holiday Inn, so I can't tell you to take it or not take it.
I don't know. Should I take it? All right. Anyway, all right. So seriously though, thank you for sharing that story. And I'm glad you were. There's a lot of things that line up to make it okay, right? There's the your training, the time it happens. I totally understand what you're talking about, like the divine intervention, right? Like all these things like work together to get you a successful outcome, and it's obviously super cool that it was a good outcome.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm very, very thankful.
Okay, we're going deep. Things are getting too serious in here. We're basically out of time, but they're saying don't. Well, now they're arguing about whether or not I should steal the lamp.
Got a great crew.
Yeah. Brian says, unfortunately, too many people feel like jerks or too cocky. CJ. Yeah, absolutely, Brian. I think that's kind of why I felt sheepish about the way I asked the question. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you, here's a question. I was going to do this for short final, but I feel like I'm going to get a longer answer than short final will allow. So let me pull this last question up. Are you ready to play a game? Are you into that?
Yeah, man. We'll find out, I guess, right?
Here's the thing: I did not intentionally. I mean, you do this on your podcast too. I didn't intentionally steal it, but I was like, oh crap.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, whatever. My lawyers will talk to your lawyers.
Yeah, I don't have a lawyer, so I emailed him making a will, and he never responded. So I guess he's not my lawyer anymore. I'm sorry, I'm vamping for time while I search here. Okay, it was Pilot Annie. Pilot Annie asked, "Oh, okay, we're gonna talk about dream hangars for a second."
Ooh, I like this. I like where this is going.
You could buy any 3 airplanes. Which 3 would they be?
And I'm supposed to keep this short, right?
I mean, I don't think. I mean, we can do it. We can do the.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I can't. I won't have to answer this for too long, anyways. All right. So, I love to fly. If I could buy an airplane, someone just asked me today. Actually, it's like, all right, if I win the lottery. Oh wow, I was not expecting that to pop up. All right. A PC-24 is going to be the jet that I would buy. Single pilot. I love Lotus. I love the PC-12. The second plane I'd buy, I had the engine failure interceptor 206, so I've always loved 206, I'd go to 206. And then I'd love something that is low and slow. I'd probably go with a Cub or some sweet tailwheel plane, get some sweet street cred, and fly that around.
All right, I think my music got in the way. You said the Piaggio. You said the 206. What? You didn't say are your people messing with you? I couldn't hear what you said. I heard 206. I heard J3 Cub. That's the one that matters to me. What was the first one?
PC-24.
PC-24. Okay. All right. You don't? Do you or do you not like the Piaggio? Are they roasting in the chat?
I'm not a big Piaggio fan. It's kind of a if you follow long enough, you'll see. I like to make fun of the Piaggio.
I mean, it's got a fun name, right? That's all it needs.
Fun, yeah. It's a name, that's for sure.
Wow, savage. Okay, here's the other questions that we normally ask. What about track up or north up?
Whatever the plane tells me. We don't really have too much control on it, so I just kind of do whatever it shows. I can't remember which one it is, to be honest with you. Terrible answer, but that's what I got for you.
I love it. What about favorite like warbird or military aircraft?
Oh man, I get crap all the time. I'm not a huge warbird guy. I've never looked at them and wanted to fly them, but I love the Tuskegee Airmen, so I would definitely go with their planes, and I would love to fly. It was P-51, right? I know this is really
P-51.
dumb, but I'm pretty sure
the red tails.
I would love to fly a red tail P-51 if I could.
One of those exists, and you have a lot of clout. I bet you could. I bet you just.
If you're listening to this, then yeah, let's do it. But yeah, I've never been a huge warbird fan. One of my flaws, I guess.
Well, what we need to hook you up with is Savannah Rasky, the Savvy Traveler.
Right.
She is a red tail. She's going to be flying a red-tailed F-35, which obviously there's no room for you in that, but maybe
awesome.
they know where to find a red-tailed P-51 for you. Pilot Annie, by the way, says she agrees with your choices. Good choices, she says.
Annie's the best. I love Annie. Everyone go follow Annie. She's awesome.
She is pretty nice. She's a nice lady.
One of the nicest and seems like genuinely happiest person I've probably talked to or talked to on Instagram.
I agree. Okay, I'm trying to think of. I left in such a hurry for work. I don't even have my list of normal short final jokes and questions. Track up, north up, warbird, whatever. A red-tailed F-35. Yeah, they're doing it, man. I don't know. We could just end it there. We'll go with a whimper.
That works.
Seriously though, Justin, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Thank you for tolerating this. I kind of sprung it on you, but I appreciate you being game for it, because we still had a really awesome conversation, even though we weren't in my random basement set, right? And thanks. Oh, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I would say it's all good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's always fun. Love to do it again. Sorry if there's any kind of lag or if it looks bad on my end or not, but appreciate it, man. It's been fun.
See, it looks super smooth on my end, so I'm hoping that's how it looked for everybody else. We'll have to see that. We'll have to go back and watch the replay. But thank you separately. Thanks for I just really think what you're doing with the podcast. I think there's a lot of I don't want to say there's YouTuber drama or whatever, but I think that there's the way that we collectively, and I'm just a baby, right? In the terms of content creators right now, but I think the way that we all present aviation, we have a responsibility to present it in a way that's really positive, that represents either the hobby or the profession really accurately. And I think Pilot to Pilot, the podcast, is definitely doing your part on that. So I just separately really, out of all the other things I'll gush and fanboy about tonight, I really appreciate that too, because it's not easy always. I mean, we just spent I'm guilty of it myself. Tell me your emergency story, but but I think the way that you're presenting that information to everyone, the way that you're presenting educational content and stuff, guys, if you aren't subscribed to the podcast, the Pilot to Pilot podcast, you got to check it out. Especially if you're me and you had to drive 4 hours today. Got some podcasts in, so
You're really tired of listening to my voice.
Nah, it's good. You mix it really well. Anyway, all right, dudes. Justin, thank you so much. Everybody else, thank you so much for joining me from the room, the first floor room in the Holiday Inn in Rothschild, Wisconsin. It has been awesome to have all of you in the chat. Like I said, Wednesdays are kind of my favorite day of the week, getting to hang out with all of you. Yeah, such a great show tonight, talking to Justin. I hope that you guys all have a great week. I hope you're safe. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're flying. And I hope that you just, I hope everything's the best. Have a good night. Oh, hey, if you haven't subscribe. You got to do that. Like half of you don't, and it's really frustrating. No, subscribe, check it out, share it, all that stuff. We'll see you guys next week.